Let's talk about the dark.
Recently, I was watching a Jacob Geller video about fear of the dark. Now, you might be thinking that it's a ridiculous idea to open a video essay by directly referencing another video essay, and you might be right, but hold my hand with this for a minute. The reason why I love Jacob Geller videos so much is because he seems, for want of a better word, haunted by his need to explore every facet of humanity through art. Whether it be visual art, writing, a city in the middle of nowhere that no one is supposed to see, video games, or music. Jacob pieces together his video essays like he's creating a collage. He winds his overarching theme through displays of art, quoted or posted either haphazardly or intentionally over each other, so that when you stand back, they create one whole image of what he's talking about.
It's too cliché to end this with some broad statement about how actual value comes from the memories we have attached to items, not the items themselves. It's true, sure, but it's overly simplistic, ignores the way history shapes our emotional connection to any item, ignores the way that history itself is sometimes only preserved thanks to obsessive efforts by individuals. It can't solve how much stuff we might attach our emotions to when that attachment overrules our ability to connect to other people, when the weight of all that stuff is too great to drag into the future.
Jacob doesn't often talk about positive things, at least not in the strictest definition of the word. His channel ruminates on horror media and mysteries and loss and failure. He talks about video games a great deal, and those are often the most positive videos on his channel, discussing the mysteries in them or the feats of engineering they've created that have gone largely unsung. But I find Jacob's videos incredibly uplifting. As Sally Sparrow once said,
I love old things. They make me feel sad. It's happy for deep people.
which sounds silly if you've never watched a Jacob Geller video, or read a Richard Sykin poem, or listened to a song that broke your heart, but that you wanted to listen to again afterwards. When I make my own videos, I'm often compelled to do so through some force I can't explain. As a creative person, I must create, although I don't always get to decide what I'm working on at any given moment. Thank you, ADHD. There are 17 unfinished novels on my hard drive, but instead of finishing any of them, I have to pour hours of energy into a video about why I hated anyone but you instead, and then film that video on one of the hottest days of the year, because for some reason, I just had to that day. Jacob's videos echo my thought process throughout creation, and maybe that's why they're so easy to watch. He jumps around from creation to creation like he's searching for the answers to a question, and he pins it all together with red string so that by the end of the video, you feel as though you've found it, even if you don't know exactly what his question was. All my favorite artists work like this. You feel a sense of effortlessness with their flow of writing and references that can only come from the fruits of hard labor. Video essayists are artists, by the way, at least some of them. The point is, I was thinking about the dark. As Jacob points out, fear of the dark is the original fear. It's the fear all our other fears are born out of. And it boils down to two things. Something is there, or something is not there.
Over the years, I've talked about the depths of the earth, the stillness of the cold, the unknowable reaches of our oceans. Each of these is merely an extension of the dark. That black, that abyss, that place we cannot see is not merely a fear, it is the fear, the place from which all others are born. Can you see the dark is a revealing question because it breaks down all the abstract language we so often use to talk about it into a single base anxiety. Here's how I would describe the fear of dark once you suck all the poeticism out of it. Either there is nothing there, or there is something there. That's it. That's all there is. Either the dark conceals something, or the dark reveals nothing.
I wrote an essay about darkness when I was in high school, about my anxiety and how the darkness wasn't actually scary on its own, it was just the possibility that there was something out there that I couldn't see. I was an anxious kid, but I was also a very self-aware kid, and I was constantly trying to understand why my brain would make me so afraid of going down the stairs in the dark, or turning a corner if I didn't know who was behind it, or of the sound of my father walking down the hallway when I was awake past my bedtime. I mean, the last one I could figure out pretty easily. That fear rose from cause and effect. I'd been screamed at for being awake past bedtime before, so I knew, or at least could guess, what would happen if he opened my bedroom door and found me reading under the covers again. But that irrational anxiety that had taken up residence in my head and followed me around everywhere from the age of about 6 was something I thought a lot about. Still is. I wrote that essay about the darkness and I likened it to swimming in the ocean and something brushing your foot under the water. It's probably seaweed, but you don't know that it's not a shark. Fun addendum to this section. While I've been reorganizing my entire space since I got back and doing a big clean out, I actually found the essay I wrote. It was in year 11 or 12. It's in like a little essay notebook that says like practice on it. It's got an examination room number on it, and it's called Who's Afraid of the Dark? So I thought I might read it to you. Again, bear in mind, I was like 15 when I wrote this. I've always wondered why humans insist on being so different to everything else. The phrase, "that's what separates us from the animals," is waved like a flag of defiance, weary from years of overuse. People use it to display exactly what they believe, hanging it loudly for all to witness. The person who marked this has put a question mark next to loudly, and they're correct. Of course, difference is something to be proud of most of the time. It's what keeps us evolving. However, these very same people boasting of their superiority are the same people who are terrified of the new, the unknown. Conformists, or people who are comforted by the false truth that order will always prevail, tend to fear change. In fact, many of them are so paralyzingly afraid of it that they haughtily fight back like the change is trying to take something it hasn't earned. At some point, everyone has clung to the covers, squeezing their eyes shut against the serial killer in the shadows. So many people claim to be afraid of the dark, but it's not the dark they're afraid of. It's what they can't see. They are terrified of what they cannot predict. People who fear sharks when swimming don't know that a shark will bite them. If they knew it was going to happen, they wouldn't go swimming. Eliminating the fear. Children fear the dark because there's always a monster hiding in it ready to pounce. I fear opening up in a meaningful way because I'm terrified people will see me for what I truly perceive myself to be, and that's horrifying. We're all afraid of something, and that fear almost always boils down to uncertainty. The human race is a paradox, fighting to be different, unable to shake off whatever history is trailing close behind, so close to winning but falling short every time. We are a meandering race, so confused and afraid we don't even know where the finish line is. It's just out of reach, but we're not going to catch it. Who knows what could be past that point? I, for one, would rather sit at home with a nice cup of tea. After all, drinking tea in bed is what separates us from the animals. Yeah, 15-year-old me was a little philosophical shit. There was a video I saw as a child, perhaps a short film or a kid's horror show or a bumper between shows, or maybe I just made it up, Candle Cove style, that changed my brain chemistry. From what I recall, a kid has nightmares and runs into his parents' bedroom to save him from whatever hooded figures are chasing him in his dreams. Both nights, his parents agree to let him sleep in bed with them, but remind him that he's a big boy and there's nothing to be afraid of. Then, on the third and final night, the kid wakes up from his dreams and runs into his parents' room and taps on his dad's shoulder, but when his parents sit up and turn around to look at him, they aren't his parents, but two hooded figures whose faces are shrouded in darkness. And then it ends. Or maybe it never existed. I had a recurring nightmare of going to wake my parents after a nightmare and instead finding hooded figures for at least 3 years. When I woke from those dreams, I didn't climb into my parents' bed. I was a smart, rational kid, but the idea that reality would fulfill the prophecy dictated by my dreams was enough to pin me to the spot. I stayed locked under my covers, barely even breathing, in case those figures were there, leaning over me, waiting for me to break. Let me tell you, in those Australian summers, that shit got hot. It got warm. When you're a kid, the scariest thing in the world is the possibility of something being in the dark. Even now, I'm a skeptic. I've never really believed in ghosts, but my rationality goes out of the window after I've watched a horror film and I have to get from one end of the house to the other. I'll turn on every light and scold myself the entire time for being irrational, or I'll walk just a little bit too fast down the dark hallway and then laugh at myself when I reach the bathroom. I've always had an extremely overactive imagination. Shocking, I know. And I've always been an extremely anxious kid. Diagnosably so. It doesn't matter how much I do not believe in ghosts when I'm somewhere that's supposedly haunted. I'll feel a chill run up my spine, look nervously around every corner, hear noises and overthink about what they could be. I'm the perfect mark I once sat in front of one of the most haunted buildings in Australia, the Royal Bull's Head Inn in Drayton. I was painting it for an art assignment in year 11, so I would have been about 15. What used to be an inn is now a museum, a snapshot of history where everything looks mostly as it would have done 100 years ago. According to most accounts, there are at least 8 recurring ghosts in the place. I planned to paint it, but to divide the canvas in half diagonally so that the left side was painted in realistic colours, as if I were attempting a still life, and the right side was only in black and white, depicting the spectral figures people so often talked about. And I decided I didn't want to draw from a photo, so I set up camp across the road from the inn and started sketching on my canvas. This was a building I had visited before. I'd been to the museum. I drove past it frequently on my way home. The place was closed that day, so nobody should have been inside. And yet, during the hour or two I sat there, more than once, I could have sworn the upstairs curtain moved, as if pulled aside by a finger or a shadow crossed by like a person. I'm a skeptic. I don't believe in ghosts. I can come up with 1,000 rationales for what actually happened. It's an old wooden inn, perhaps the breeze catches through gaps in the walls or panes, perhaps someone was actually inside the building doing maintenance, and I just didn't see them go in because they went in through the back. Or perhaps my eyes were just playing tricks on me. But none of that erases the sense of unease that seeing the curtain flicker caused. Like I said, I've got an active imagination. I can watch a bad horror movie and still walk away feeling uneasy. I have done that. There's a terrible Netflix movie called The Open House starring Dylan Minnette, and I'm not joking when I say it's legitimately one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Sorry, Dylan. It commits the cardinal sin when it comes to movie making. It's boring. It's about a mother and a son who move into a relative's house, allowed to live there until it sells, and their day-to-day life in it, as well as the open days, and all the weird occurrences surrounding the house. In theory, it should be terrifying, but it's not. It's not suspenseful, it's not scary, the plot is nonsensical, the acting is wooden and uninteresting, and I'm not really rooting for any of the characters. I finished the movie feeling underwhelmed and annoyed that I'd wasted my time on it. And for the next 2 hours, I was still on edge. I still flicked the light on before I walked the 1.5 meters between my bedroom and the bathroom door to pee, eyes on the attic door in the ceiling, in case somebody was hiding in there just waiting for me to walk under it. The idea that somebody is living in your house without your knowledge is terrifying. It's why I've been obsessed with the Hinterkaifeck murders since I was about 15, fascinated by the story of this entire family who were murdered in their own home, who weren't found until days later, with evidence that somebody had been living in the house for at least 3 days after their demise. The evidence that someone had been living in their house before the murders, the fact that their previous maid quit because of the strange noises coming from the attic, the keys consistently misplaced, the newspapers showing up that nobody claimed to have bought, the footsteps in the snow that led to a door in the farm's machine room, but no tracks leading out, that last one occurring only days before the murders were committed. The fact that the family were killed on the day their new maid arrived, implying a possibility that the new maid had found something suspicious, or her presence alone had triggered the culprit to action for some reason or another. Nobody noticed the family's absence until 4 days later, when enough people agreed they hadn't seen any member of the family in a while and went to investigate. The killer was never caught, and it's been 100 years, so we'll probably never know the full truth of what happened that day. I wrote a short story based on the Hinterkaifeck killer as a writing exercise at university. It had been nearly a week, and she knew she'd have to leave soon. No amount of smoke from the chimney or water in the cattle troughs could prevent that. In the morning, the village would encroach on her home the way well-meaning neighbours tend to do, and she had no interest in allowing that. She leaned back in her chair, chewing slowly on the stale bread. Even toasting it hadn't really helped. She preferred it when more people lived in the house, bringing ingredients home to cook properly and spice meats and bread the way only the mother could. With the last of the bread used up, she dusted the crumbs off her plate and onto the floor. There was no need to keep the place tidy for anyone but herself. She highly doubted that the children would care. She continued about her morning routine, walking down to the fields to feed the animals, checking on the fence line, cutting firewood for the evening, and she hummed all the while, It was a harder job without all the other sets of hands. She was doing the work of 4 people on her own, and not for the first time, she found herself thinking that it wasn't fair that she was expected to do all this work. When she returned to the house, cold and in desperate need of a warm fire to sit by, she added more wood to the hearth before she curled up in front of it. The footprints in the snow around the house now were well worn, her own, over and over in the same pattern. Sometimes she thought she might be putting her feet in the exact same places every day, but with the nightly snowfall, it was impossible to say. It wasn't yet warm enough in the house, so she decided to walk upstairs to keep herself from freezing. She checked on the baby in the crib and poked her head in on the maid's bedroom, and then proceeded even further up, climbing the ladder into the attic. There was something comforting about the space, and especially the loose board in the wall that she pulled aside, like she used to. She slipped into the small space behind the wall and tugged the board back into place, plunging herself into darkness. This was how she'd always preferred it. Not the open space and the chores, but the damp and the dark, and only the muffled sounds from the family below to entertain her. Now, there was no sound. It was just her. The house didn't even creak anymore. The family always used to complain about the creaking, about the footsteps in the attic and the keys getting misplaced. She had never been bothered by it. She tucked her knees up and pressed herself tighter into the small space. Nothing bothered her too much, except that new maid and her incessant whistling. That had been irksome. The pickaxe had been heavy, but once it was done she felt much better, even displayed the thing in the living room so she could see the red stains turning to rust as the days dragged on. Don't know if you can tell, but I'm a fan of horror movies and murder mysteries and tragedies because I'm endlessly fascinated by the terrible, terrible things that humans can do to each other and still somehow remain human. Nazis aren't bad because they're singularly evil. They're bad because anybody could become one. Serial killers aren't unique. Not a one of them. Neither are rapists or abusers or even just assholes. To be human is to have a complex and imbalanced relationship with power, whether that be internal, external, or both. To be human is to have the capacity for both immense evil and pure compassion. Bad people have done good things, and good people have done bad things. To be human is to be capable of both acts of utmost empathy and acts of extreme evil. Ignoring that is how fascism starts to rise again. Cough, cough, America, cough. The main difference between good people and bad people, I truly believe, is their capacity to be haunted. Bad people aren't haunted by the things they've done because they don't consider the effect their actions have on others. Good people are haunted by their actions, whether they've been forgiven or not. Good people also take their hauntings as penance. If a bad person were to be haunted by their misdeeds, they'd see it more as an inconvenience or an insult than what it actually is. How dare you bring this up again? Aren't we over this by now? Don't you have anything better to do? You might be dead, but I'm still here. Why should I listen to you? And still, bad people can become good people with enough work. Just like good people can slip into villainy if they lose track of the effects of their actions or become desensitized to the hauntings. This also isn't to say that you should let yourself be haunted forever. A lot of people have the kinds of mental illnesses and PTSD and neurodivergencies that will take the hauntings and obsess over them and wallow in them and refuse to actually learn anything or grow from it. If you spend your entire life feeling guilty for every single thing you do, you'll never grow or move forward. That's not being haunted. That's being buried. And those are very different things. Humans have been haunted since humans first evolved, by our pasts, by our anxieties, and by the people we've lost, whether literally or figuratively. In some strange way, being haunted is comforting. The idea that the ones we've lost aren't simply gone, but are in some way lingering, is a kind one. The idea that even if we make mistakes or hurt someone, we can apologize after they're gone and they'll somehow know, is a beautiful wish. One of the most romantic lines ever written, I believe, is from a Richard Sykin poem. You are Jeff. You're probably familiar with a bunch of lines from this poem, and particularly the last stanza, which has been used in 100,000 Tumblr GIF sets. You're in a car with a beautiful boy. It's probably ringing some bells right now. And that stanza is beautiful, but my personal preference in terms of heart-rending romance is actually a few stanzas earlier. I'd like to give you context, I really would, but this is a weird, long poem. It's more than 20 stanzas, some of which have connective tissue, and some don't, at least on first read. It flicks from hilarious and absurd and strange, to emotional, to fond, to heartbreaking in a few sentences, and then circles right back to weird. It's a bizarre, perfect poem, but it's certainly not to everyone's taste. It is to mine, though. If you want to know more about who I am as a person, that's a good place to start. And in fact, I'm going to post a video, it's probably already up on my Patreon as we speak, of me reading the poem and breaking down the things I really like about it. So if you're interested in that, feel free to subscribe to my Patreon. But let's talk about this stanza in particular. Hold on to your voice. Hold on to your breath. Don't make a noise. Don't leave the room until I come back from the dead for you. I will come back from the dead for you. This could be a city, this could be a graveyard, this could be the basket of a big balloon. Leave the lights on, leave a trail of letters like those little knots of bread we used to dream about. We used to dream about them. We used to do a lot of things. Put your hand to the knob, your mouth to the hand, pick up the bread and devour it. I'm in the hallway again. I'm in the hallway. The radio's playing my favorite song. Leave the lights on, keep talking. I'll keep walking toward the sound of your voice. Don't leave the room until I come back from the dead for you. I will come back from the dead for you. I will come back from the dead for you. I will reach across the universe. I will break physics and reality and the cycle of life and death for you. Just wait a little longer. It's beautiful. It's romantic, but it's also heartbreaking. It's upsetting. It's a tragedy. It's a plea from somebody who has no idea if you can hear them. And the tragedy is part of what makes it so beautiful. The story is beautiful because it ends, and it's tragic because we don't want it to. The gods envy us. They envy us because we're mortal, because any moment may be our last. Everything is more beautiful because we're doomed. You will never be lovelier than you are now. We will never be here again. Humans are haunted by tragedy. It's part of the deal of being a human. And it hurts. And it's terrifying. But it's also beautiful sometimes. Sometimes, however, it's not. Sometimes it's just tragic. Sometimes it's brutal and broken and devastating. When you're a kid, the scariest thing in the world is the possibility of something being in the dark. When you're an adult, the scariest thing in the world is the possibility that there's nothing there. Nobody is coming back from the dead. Nothing is coming to help you. You are screaming into a void. The emptiness is scarier than any phantasm could possibly be, and the idea of a malicious spirit is pretty damn terrifying. There's no God to fix the world's mistakes, there's no world council high enough or powerful enough to stop every bad thing from happening. It's just nothing. The nothing is the true encapsulation of fear. And sometimes, messing with the concept of nothing, combining it with the concept of something, is the scariest thing we can do. One of my weird life goals is to write a scary story where there's one too many people. This device is used a lot in horror. For a milder version, Doctor Who has implemented it more than once, first example springing to mind being there are 6 doors on the landing, not 5.
How many rooms?
I'm sorry, what?
On this floor, how many rooms on this floor? Count them for me now.
5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6.
6.
Look.
Look where?
Exactly where you don't want to look, where you never want to look. The corner of your eye. Look behind you.
There are slight variations on this idea, a la impersonation, which also works incredibly well. Something is there, but they aren't what they're supposed to be. It's why we find smiles without context so creepy. It's why movies like Us work so well. Somebody is there, but they are not there. Midnight, arguably one of Doctor Who's best episodes, plays with this concept, as something, we never find out what, gets into the cabin of the vehicle and becomes Sky Silvestri. And then it starts repeating.
Stop it. Stop it. I said stop it. I said stop it. I don't think she can. I don't think she can. No, stop it. This isn't fun. Stop it. This isn't fun. Shh.
Until it's repeating at the same speed as they're speaking. And then it latches onto one of them and starts speaking first. It's a masterclass in horror, and in the very mundane horror of humans panicking, and that panic leading to self-serving behavior despite what logic should be telling them to do. A line from that episode has always stuck out to me. Maybe because I'm a writer, where one of the passengers quotes Christina Rossetti's poem, Goblin Market.
We must not look at goblin men.
What's that supposed to mean? It's a poem, Christina Rossetti.
We must not look at goblin men. We must not buy their fruits. Who knows upon what soil they fed their hungry, thirsty roots?
Actually, I don't think that's helping.
Now, Christina Rossetti isn't my favourite poet, and this isn't my favourite poem. Not even close. But that line, it sticks with me. Claws at something deep and primal in my chest that tells me to be afraid of what's in the dark. We must not look at goblin men. Amy doesn't count the sixth door because she can't. Because she doesn't want to see it. Because she's afraid. Because if she can see it, then it means her nightmares are real. In Nope, Jordan Peele takes this fear and rubs our face in it. A creature is killing people, but only if you look it in the eye. It takes that base human urge, curiosity, and weaponizes it against us. Plenty of creepypastas do this too. The sound of whistling at 3 a.m, but you're not allowed to look for who does it. Someone acting strange, but only when you're alone with them. A promise to follow strange, idiosyncratic rules with no description of what will happen if we don't, and the mounting sense of dread as we realize we forgot one. In the darkness, something is there and not there. My favorite version of this kind of story will always be the I counted wrong kind, hence me wanting to write my own version of one. There are a whole bunch of examples of this kind of story. The one that I think is one of the most popular ones on r/nosleep is titled I Invited 5 Friends Over, One Too Many Arrived. And it's okay, it's pretty good. It's one of the ones that I think gets a little bit too gritty with it. One of the best examples I've seen is titled There's Only 5 of Us on This Camping Trip, We Keep Counting 6. And that's the one I'm going to read to you as an example. It's created by user Not Necessarily on the No Sleep Reddit. It's extremely popular. It's one of the first things you'll be able to find, and it's phenomenally well written. There were bright flashes of red in the sky. It's as if someone was waving around a flare light from space, faint but noticeable. We all made UFO jokes and laughed as we nailed our tents into the ground. I knew for sure that there were 5 of us. We have all been friends since early middle school and were celebrating our high school graduation with this getaway camping trip. The flashes of red must have stopped randomly as we made conversation while fixing up our tents. Dave managed to put his tent together the fastest and told us he was going to find some branches for the fire. I remember how he had worked with me at the local gas station last year. We used to do the night shift together, and it had made working at a desolate gas station much more fun than it was supposed to be. There was also Eric in the corner, still reading his tent manual, fidgeting with his signature round glasses. I wasn't as close with Eric as I was with the others, but I still remember sitting with him in math class and copying his homework one time. Ava was also there talking with Sally, my cousin. Both had decided to team up and work on one tent at a time. I also have clear memories of them, hanging around at school in our usual places. In fact, I even knew Ava's younger brother as he used to beg to go with us wherever we went. I bring all this up because I'm sure that there were 5 of us, including me, and that I knew everyone in the group. So David went to get some branches as we pulled out some foldable chairs and set them up around the fire pit. I remember feeling uneasy as the sunset and darkness began to consume the forest. The shadows of trees elongated around us as the minutes ticked by. Eric went to get a flashlight from his bag while we wondered what was taking Dave so long. He appeared soon after, the harsh rustling sounds of the bushes signifying his return. We were all buried in our chairs at this point, covered by our jackets. The temperature had dropped quickly and a slight breeze was beginning to pick up. "Geez, you guys weren't even bothered to pull out a chair for me?" Dave said as he arranged all the branches in the pit. We had set up 5 chairs around the fire. I tried to rationalize the situation, but no matter how hard I focused, my head felt like it was underwater. I had perfect clarity up until that moment, but when I tried to focus on why 5 chairs were occupied when Dave hadn't sat down yet, my head seemed to just stop working, as if something was reaching in and pulling out my thoughts. Instinctually, I felt even more uneasy now, and I had placed why. The whole forest had gone dead silent. I looked around at the faces of the others and could tell that they had felt the same. Eric was fidgeting with his fingers, trying to scan around the group and spot the extra person, but it was futile. I scanned every face, each etched in worry and frowning in frustration, except for... "It's all right, I'll get the chair myself," Dave said, breaking the silence and somewhat alleviating the tension. I got up and offered to help him. He looked into my eyes and nodded knowingly. We headed away from the fire pit towards the tents, but I kept my eyes glued on our group. "How many people are here?" I whispered to Dave as he looked around and realized that we had indeed only packed 5 chairs. In fact, every person had brought with them their own chair. They were heavy to carry and we wouldn't bring any extra needlessly. "There's 5, right? I mean, there's 5 chairs?" Dave replied, his voice wavering as he spoke. "No, I just think maybe one of us forgot our chair," I said. My mind was struggling to address the issue head on and now sought to find rational excuses instead. I didn't quite feel in control of my thoughts. It felt like swimming in a dream, and if I tried to force myself to think about who the 6th person was, my head would begin to throb. "Yeah, that sounds about right, actually," Dave said, relaxing and heading back to the group. When we walked back to the fire pit and circle of chairs, 2 chairs were empty. One for me and one for Dave. Everything was adding up now, even though we all agreed it wasn't before. Sally suggested we were all probably tired after the long hike to get here and probably just needed some sleep. She could have been right. We were all sleep deprived from waking up very early today to make it on time. Ava brought out the drinks. The whole 6-pack was emptied. We all moved closer to the crackling fire for warmth as we took sips from our cans and reminisced on memories of last year. Ava was in the middle of telling us about that one time she was home alone with weird things happening in her house when I got these sudden chills despite the pleasant warmth of the fire. What felt cozy and safe moments ago felt wrong now, all because I realized there was a crucial detail I missed. "Who started the fire?" I asked. I'm not going to read the whole thing, because if you're interested in it, I think you should just go and read it. But this one does go quite well in terms of not escalating to the point where it gets too gruesome and cuts off. It's actually really well paced. And if it scared the shit out of you, good. It also scared the shit out of me. At the time that I read it, was living on the road in a van, and so was often sitting outside in camping chairs in the evening with my mum and my stepdad. Deeply anxiety inducing to read something that implies that the simple act of putting out camping chairs can be a horror device. Definitely sets your teeth on edge for a while. I highly recommend it. It's perfect because there's nothing there. But there's also something there, and therefore it takes both sides of the coin and spins them, and you don't know which side it's going to fall down on, and you can't decide which would be worse. I've spent a few years thinking about how to write the best possible version of this story, because some I've read make the ending too gruesome and visceral, and by doing so remove some of the terror of the unknown that has fed the story up until that point. And some of them seemingly don't know how to end the story at all, which ends up destroying the momentum entirely. I still haven't figured it out. I might never figure it out. It might be the white whale that haunts me for my entire life, which is really funny to me, because despite my interest in horror and tragedy, those are the 2 genres I almost never want to actually write. For the most part, I want my stories to have catharsis. I want my tragic heroes to get the happy ending despite the odds. I want to take refuge in the tales I weave from the harsh reality of life. I have no desire to write the next A Little Life, largely because I hate it and I think it's a literary waste of space. Oh, all your characters experience endless tragedies and are seemingly never allowed a moment of actual catharsis at any point, and then they die. You're so edgy and cool. Well done! Sorry, I really hate that book. Tragedy for tragedy's sake holds absolutely no interest to me. I'm sure it works for other people, but to me it's just getting off on other people's pain, and I'm not a sadist. I might be a bit of a masochist. Like I said, I like tragedies, but usually because they're cathartic, despite the tragedy of it all. I remember someone telling me once that if your book is depressing, you've written it wrong. If your book is sad, you've written it right. Depressing leaves people feeling bad afterwards. Hadestown is a perfect musical for this exact reason. It opens with the idea that this story has been told before, and we all know how it ends.
It's a sad song. It's a sad song. It's a sad tale. It's a tragedy. It's a sad song. It's a sad song. Sing it anyway.
Oh, in case you don't know what the story of Hadestown is about, it's about the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, who fell in love with each other, and then Eurydice was taken to the underworld. And when Orpheus traveled down there as a mortal, which he absolutely shouldn't have done, Hades admires his bravery enough to send him back with Eurydice. Hades promises that as long as Orpheus doesn't look back once at Eurydice for the entire trek back up to the mortal realm, he can take her home with him. And then, right before they exit, he looks back, and he loses her forever. We all know that Orpheus is going to look back. He's going to fail. Eurydice is doomed to the underworld. We know the end of the story before we even start it, but we tell it anyway. Because maybe this time it'll be different. And then it isn't. He still looks back. They still fail. She still disappears. But that doesn't make the story any less worth telling. It doesn't mean that we should stop telling it. Eurydice will always fall in love with Orpheus. And he will always look back. As pointed out by Soa Sawako on Tumblr, him turning back isn't a sign of mortal frailness, but a sign of love. And as the gloriously named Dean Winchester's clit added, this is true no matter the version you're reading. Eurydice trips, and Orpheus turns to help her because he loves her. Orpheus cannot hear Eurydice behind him, and fearing that he's been tricked, turns to make sure she's there. Orpheus makes it out of the underworld, and so full of love and excitement to be with Eurydice, turns to embrace her, forgetting that they both need to be out of the underworld. No matter what happens in the story, Orpheus loses Eurydice because his love for her compels him to look. Orpheus spends that entire torturous walk grappling with this problem of the nothing and something. But instead of framing it as a horror device, it's framed in tragedy and romance. The coins are spinning. Is she there or not there? Will the answer save them or damn them?
Penny in the air. And the penny drops.
For as long as he doesn't turn around, both realities can exist as true. Schrodinger's Eurydice. For as long as we retell the story, the ending might change. For as long as the song doesn't end, the realities can coexist. For as long as the musical is on, Orpheus is always falling in love with Eurydice. They're always happy, and even though it always ends the same way, we'll play it again, just in case. And this idea of living in tandem with something that's there and not there is as old as humans. It's why we tell ghost stories. It's why scary stories to tell in the dark are the most captivating stories to tell. It's why we find a paradoxical comfort in tragedy, and why, despite knowing the ending will be happy, we still tune into rom-coms and feel-good movies. Knowing the ending isn't a bug. For so many kinds of stories, it's a feature. In Marcus Zusak's The Book Thief, famously one of my favorite books, Death is narrating the story to us. And because of the nature of our narrator, it's easy to pair from the subtext that the ending will probably not be a happy one. But even outside of subtext, we are told the ending at the beginning. And at various points throughout the book, we are reminded of the tragedy that death is walking us towards.
The last time I saw her was red. The sky was like soup, boiling and stirring. In some places it was burned. There were black crumbs and pepper streaked among the redness. Earlier, kids had been playing hopscotch there on the street that looked like oil-stained pages. When I arrived, I could still hear the echoes. The feet tapping the road, the children voices laughing, and the smiles like salt, but decaying fast. Then, bombs.
We love Rudy, despite knowing what will eventually happen to him. Perhaps we love him more because we know how briefly he will be able to shine. Death is also, importantly, the most compassionate character in the whole story, which is saying something because it's a book full of compassionate characters. Death follows the events of the story because the entire story is soaked in the dead and the dying, but they follow it because before they go, their lives mean something. Because the tiny human moments stand out to Death enough to warrant telling us the story. And there's something comforting about that, isn't there? The idea that Death is capable of compassion. The idea that Death could be a person who follows you around or shows up in the worst moments. Not because they want to make those moments worse, but because they don't. Death as a comforting presence and not a heartbreaking one. Or maybe both. Death haunting you not as an omen, but as a kindness. And the book also makes it clear that it goes both ways. Death feels tethered to humans and their choices, good and bad, and they are unable to shake the effect it has on them. Because, as Death so succinctly puts it themselves, I am haunted by humans. I don't have a grand point in this video the way I tend to have with other essays. I'm not trying to convince you to be a commie or prove something to be true or not true. I'm just holding art up to you and showing you the conclusions I've drawn and asking you to follow me through them. Because what is art if not a reflection of humanity? And what is humanity if not varied and indefinable? We haunt each other, and sometimes we even haunt ourselves, caught in thought loops and regrets and constantly dragged back into a version of ourselves we're trying to leave behind. It's what half of my poetry is about.
I've learned to pray with my eyes open, because I think the wrong guy's taking the calls. And maybe it's been too long or the line's broken. But every time I go through the motions, it feels like a step towards downfall. So I've learned to pray with my eyes open, hands together and holding my breath, frozen, to look for shadows that stretch too long down the halls. It's been too long. My connection might be broken. It's not like God ever cared for my devotion. My prayers were bound to be a shortfall. So I've learned to pray with my eyes open. There's something up there that feeds on corrosion, and every time I pray, it seeps through the walls. The rot's too endemic and the line's broken. But I keep pressing my hands together in hope and do anything to find salvation, reach, run, crawl. I've learned to pray with my eyes wide open, and maybe it's been too long or the line's broken, because I think the wrong guy's taking the calls.
Ghost stories are as old as we are. Living with ghosts is part of the human experience, whether you believe in them or not. We are all haunted by something. Tragedy is haunted by the end. Horror is haunted by the middle. Reality is haunted by the beginning. We're always running away from our past, but simultaneously looking back to it, both individually and societally. We're always being haunted by things we did or didn't do, the routes we didn't take, the people we lost or left behind. That's the nature of being human. To be human is to be haunted. So nice to be back in my own room again after such a long year, and it was a good year in a lot of ways and a stressful year in a lot of other ways, but it's really nice to be back. I know that some of you are probably going to ask me why I didn't specifically mention death from Sandman in my section about death being compassionate, because if any version of death is compassionate, she is. But I have a new policy to not speak about anything Neil Gaiman related in my videos anymore, because he sucks. I will still talk about Good Omens because half of that belongs to Terry Pratchett. So spiritually to me, it will be Terry Pratchett's baby forever now. And like, I still have a deep abiding love for Sandman, but I can't separate those things at the moment, and I can't endorse it. And if you would like to hear more thoughts on this, you should watch the Leftist Cooks video about it. I'll link it. It's really good. I wanted this video to kind of be a bit of a departure from my last few things. A lot of them have been very political, which I always am, and sort of topical. I sort of wanted to get back to writing something more creative, which I haven't for a hot minute, and it starts to drain on me after a while if I haven't done anything like weird and esoteric and poetic. Because again, that's just how my brain works, the price of being a creative. But I have lots of video ideas in the works. I have a full 2-hour video script that I've finished, my video about forgiveness, which I have been teasing for at least 3 years on the channel, maybe 2 years. But that's finally finished, the script for that, so I can hopefully start filming that one soon. Videos in the works about more topical things again. I've got stuff about Ryan Murphy, and I have a whole video about exposition and my personal gripes with a lot of things lately. But in the meantime, I really hope you like this one. Like I said, it's a bit of a weird one, but I hope that it finds its audience. And if you are interested in supporting my channel and supporting content like this, please feel free to subscribe to my Patreon. If you cannot afford it, please do not. Otherwise, just subscribe to this channel, like and comment, say hello, tell me about your favorite scary story, or your favorite tragic story, or your favorite hopeful story. Like I said, the hauntings aren't always bad. One of the things I didn't quite get to in the rest of the video, which I definitely should have spoken about, was the haunting of Hill House and the haunting of Bly Manor, and the way that Mike Flanagan specifically approaches so many of those stories of humanity and haunting with that cyclical loop about tragedy and hope and sadness and love and connection. They are amazing. But I think enough people have written video essays about those things in particular, so I kind of wanted to talk about the slightly less common and less well-known versions of those kinds of stories. I know The Book Thief is a very famous book, but in terms of like those little creepypastas and the scary stories and the, you know, the Richard Sykin poetry and things like that, like I'd quite like for my videos to find my people who agree with what I'm talking about, but also find people who might not have thought about what I'm talking about before and maybe hear me and go, oh, actually, I'd love to read that, or I'd love to watch that movie, or whatever else. Like I said, art is connection. Telling stories to each other is how we connect with each other. And I think now more than ever, we need connection. Within 24 hours of arriving back in the UK, they passed that stupid fucking anti-trans bathroom bullshit, and not gonna lie, it was really disheartening. While I tend to present pretty femme on the channel, I don't always present femme in my day-to-day life. And on Sunday, I went for a walk with a friend of mine, and we stopped in a pub halfway, and I was wearing a loose button-up and some really daggy shorts, and I had no makeup on, and I was presenting pretty mask, and I went to the bathroom, and when I came out of the bathroom, the lady who was standing at the sink looked in the mirror at me and clocked me, like checked. And then once she realized I was a woman, I'm agender, she like relaxed. And it was really uncomfortable and gross. Because, like I said, I'm not the most mask-presenting person, and I have extremely mask-presenting friends. I have non-binary friends. I have trans mask friends who are going to get that a lot worse. I have trans femme friends who will also get it a lot worse. But, like, just in terms of day-to-day life, like, what we're condemning trans mask people to now is if they're not allowed in the male bathroom, then they get to go in the female bathrooms. Or, as they're so claiming to be so afraid of, men, cis men, will go into female bathrooms claiming to be trans men. These people are so fucking stupid. Just leave people alone. Just let people live their lives. My God, grow up. Sorry, I've been heated about that since I got back. I hope that all my trans friends in the UK and in America out there are doing okay. I hope that you've got community and you're holding hands with each other across the void. And I hope that in some ways my videos are a comfort, or at the very least, something distracting. Just keep telling stories. Keep telling stories and don't let go of each other's hands. Annyeong.
This episode, along with most future episodes, are dedicated to Ian Musso, who is the singular member of my Kidali Ajashi tier on Patreon, which I 1000% thought that nobody would pick. Mainly put it on there just to make a joke out of the name Kidali Ajashi, which is like the Korean version of like sugar daddy, because I just think it's funny. I think the actual way it translates is like daddy long legs. Anyway, I put it on there thinking that nobody would actually sign up for it. Ian has been pretty much a day one patron and has been extremely supportive of this entire channel for a really long time, and they just continue being stupidly supportive, and I literally cannot thank them enough. Next up, I would like to thank Candy99, who in my Roman Empire tier, and they are my Roman Empire. I do think of them at least once a day. To be clear, I know this person in real life. I'm not just being really weird and parasocial. This is somebody I know personally. Next up, I'd like to thank my rooftop dwellers, Cast, Dana Brand, Nick Hook, BPs, Ace of Lights, Cal Kale, Best Stressed, Sunshine Shay, Deborah Laban, Sarah Parker Schemmelt, Ghost Porcupine, Callum MacLeod of Clan MacLeod, Whoop Whoops, Lilac Rose, CS, Rihanna, Carolina, Chris K, E. Teddy, Renelia Delgrange, Jellywer, Sunayama, Tiny Wooden Tree, and Tan. And finally, my amazing introverts, who you can see spinning over the screen just now. Look at them all, aren't they amazing? Look at how beautiful and gorgeous they are. Truly, the last year of my life, I don't think would have been possible without having a Patreon and having these patrons. And my goal for this year is to start posting a lot more Patreon exclusive content, because I think a lot of last year was spent just playing catch up on videos that I wanted to get done, and balancing it against my real life, which got very hectic. My main goal for this year, outside of getting more videos out on my actual channel, is to get a lot more Patreon exclusive content out. So if that is something you would be interested in, there's a couple of videos up there now. There should be a couple new videos going up on the Patreon over the next few weeks that I've been sort of, just little ones, just small ones that I've been sort of sitting on for a while. So there'll be a small backlog of content if that's the kind of thing you're interested in from now on. But in the future, I am gonna try and make that backlog even bigger, if at all possible. I hope that you're all doing well out there. Thank you so much for supporting me, and take care of yourselves. 안녕!